another really important story that we wanted to update you on, which is where the Democrats are with this big reconciliation package. Last we left you, there was an impasse between these first 9, then it became 10. There's the far right and the far left. These are like the far corporatists. They're like the most extreme pro-corporate wing of the Democratic Party. They are trying effectively to only pass the bipartisan infrastructure deal and to pour cold water on the reconciliation package. That's ultimately their goal, regardless of what else they say. That's what they're aiming at here. And there was this kind of impasse between Pelosi and those 10 corporatists who wanted to immediately schedule an infrastructure vote so that they could get that through and get that done. And that would allow them to do whatever they want, and ultimately probably tank the reconciliation bill. So there was a question of how hard of a line Pelosi was going to draw, how hard of a line these 9, ultimately 10, were going to draw. So they came to a kind of a deal. The idea here, and it's a little bit complicated, but they effectively agreed that the infrastructure package would come up for a vote on September 27th. Actually, let me rephrase that. Would be considered by September 27th is the specific deal that was ultimately reached. So that gives Pelosi and Bernie and all the Democrats working on these committees, gives them about 5 weeks to try to work out all of the details of the reconciliation package and bring that to the floor so that they can still be tied together. And just so you guys remember, the reason why it's important for these two things to be tied together is because that makes sure that the progressives have some leverage over the moderates. They're kind of holding their infrastructure package hostage to coerce them to vote for the reconciliation bill in some sort of reasonable form. And that also keeps the progressives in line to vote for an infrastructure package that they don't really like. So it sort of keeps the leverage, distributes the power between all factions of the party. Ultimately, the moderates wanted to reclaim, they're not moderates really, they're extremists in this context. They wanted to reclaim that power for themselves, just be able to get their infrastructure package through. So this deal is struck that says they must consider the infrastructure bill by September 27th. These 9 are running around acting like this is some big win and they really got their way. What is the reality here? Let's put Jake Sherman's reporting from Punchbowl up on the screen. Ultimately, it seems like the September 27th deadline that they supposedly won is really ultimately kind of meaningless. He says Pelosi still holds all the cards here for 3 big reasons. The rule only says they have to consider the infrastructure bill by September 27th. It doesn't say they have to vote on it then. So you could push it off down the vote off down the road. You could use stalling tactics. So that gives you wiggle room to start with. Number 2, you can pass another rule that says we're going to do something different. So if you have a majority of the caucus to pass another rule, then you can still do something different. And finally, she can actually just use what he describes as a break the glass plan. Clause 1C of House Rule XIX allows Pelosi to unilaterally reschedule the vote. So she can just decide I know I said I'm going to do that, but now we're going to do something different now. Now, I know she wouldn't necessarily want to use that as a first option because you've given someone your word, et cetera, but that is still on the table. So what does all of this mean ultimately? It means really Pelosi still holds all the cards here, as Jake ultimately said. She can decide when and how this vote comes up. She can decide how much pressure she wants to put on these corporatists. She can also decide how much pressure she wants to put on the progressives to get in line on a reconciliation package that is certainly going to end up less than the $3.5 trillion that was originally proposed. So that's where we are. A sort of deal has been struck, a timeline has been set, but ultimately Pelosi is still in control of this process. Whether that ends up being a good thing or a bad thing remains very much to be seen.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Krystal, watching all of this. And actually, like you said at the beginning, I know this might sound like a lot of inside baseball, but there's a lot of stuff in this bill where whether you're for or against, you should probably at least know what is going on in here. And so it's interesting to me, actually, that one of the most titanic pieces of legislation that would pass in modern American history is not getting even close to the headlines, frankly, that it really deserves. And so Did we already put Ryan Grimm's piece up there on the screen? Because I think that one is important as well, that the cracks emerging in Josh Gottheimer's Unbreakable Nine. Let's go ahead and put that up there. Right. And then, of course, we have that tweet as well around how Representative Omar, Bush, and Tlaib have already said that they won't be voting for the reconciliation bill or for the infrastructure bill unless it comes out at the exact same time. I think that these dynamics are all very important. And so when we have, and what we'll see in terms of the vote, is if they can get it done by September 27th. But as you said, they're not necessarily hardwired to that date in the first place. And I just find it really, I just don't see any way they could possibly get it done by September 27th. That's only a month from now. 3.5 trillion. They haven't even begun writing the entire thing in the Senate.
Well, that is true, but they have actually, a lot of these pieces have already been written. So apparently she was already planning on a timeline of early October. So This really actually only changes it by a few days. And a lot of these pieces have already been written. So there is some indication that it is possible and feasible. The challenge is if you do, in fact, have a hard date set in stone, that does hand power to the corporatists who don't want the reconciliation bill really at all. They're certainly happy to hack it to pieces. So that gives you a hard deadline where you can go to the progressives. And like we've seen happen time and time again, you can say to them, look, take it or leave it. The infrastructure bill is coming up for a vote tomorrow. So if you don't take this package, nothing is happening. Right. And that's a tremendous amount of leverage. That's a tremendous amount of pressure you can put ultimately on the progressives here at the end. So far, they have been really cohesive. They've had one unified line about, look, this has to be done together in tandem, and it has to be, it has to have climate provisions. It has to be, a sizable package. That's the part, though, that gets really squishy is we don't know exactly where their red lines are. What will they ultimately accept here? And that's where things, I think, ultimately get really dicey. But, it is interesting having someone who does use hardball tactics and is competent in terms of understanding the process and getting what she wants, working at least somewhat on your side to get this package through. And again, look, we're a long way from here to there. But, we were talking last time about how reportedly these 9 are getting a lot of pressure in terms of, listen, we're going to destroy your district. You're not going to be able to win re-election because of redistricting. Somebody's sibling or relative at the White House was being threatened with being fired. Bill Clinton was making calls. It seems like they're going all in to bring these people to heel. Ultimately, I think they achieved a sort of like face-saving gesture in terms of what they actually won here. But again, the cards are all being held by Nancy Pelosi. The ultimate deal is going to take the shape of what she wants it to take. That doesn't give me a whole lot of comfort here, but we'll see ultimately what comes together. And I do want to spend a little bit of time, because it's easy to get bogged down in the process, just talking about what is actually in this bill, right? We're talking about, this is, if you care about climate, there's nothing in the infrastructure package effectively that's going to deal significantly with climate. All of it is in the infrastructure package. They can't directly put a renewable energy standard in, but they're trying to put incentives in that act effectively like a renewable energy standard. That would be significant. On education, you've got universal pre-K and you've got universal free community college. Both huge deals. Pre-K in particular, to me, there is no better investment we could make than in our young children. Those formative years, all of the research says, absolutely critical for where you're going to end up in life. So universal pre-K and also universal community college, really important here. On healthcare, you have a huge expansion of Medicaid. You also have an expansion of Medicare that would include vision, dental, hearing. Some indications it may also include lowering the Medicare age. So that is also really critical and really important. You've got an extension of that child tax credit that provides a benefit to so many families in this country and really providing them with a cash infusion, again, investing in, our children. So listen, there are real tangible benefits here in terms of everything that's in the news right now. This is the package that is most likely to have the most profound impact on your life. So the process is important just in terms of whether it's going to happen or not. But I don't want to lose sight of the details of what it's going to mean for you, your family, your community, and what's ultimately at stake here.
That's right. Everybody go and make sure they're familiarized. This would be one of the biggest transformations of the American welfare state since 1994. And nobody's really talking about that. And I actually do think there's a lot of worthy discussion to be had.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut. Our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions. All that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.